was a time to pause and look around to say, I have no home, have no kids, lost X members of my family, maybe missing a limb or two myself. It's kind of like when you're running a race and you're running and running. Any marathon runners in this room? I'm not, but anyone else? Yeah. What they tell you, never, don't stop, right? You can slow down, but just never stop, because when you stop, it's so hard to just keep going. So I think it's important for us to understand that we cannot stop. We will not stop, because the goal is liberation, freedom, and justice for Palestine, and that is a long marathon. And so all of this, yeah, thank you, Andy. Andy's, I must say, someone who understands this really well. First, huge round of applause for Andy for making this statement. And it's amazing, and John, John and Andy are very graceful in giving us these spaces to use. They're so gracious with their time, with their resources, with their love. And if it were not for these convening spaces to keep us constantly connected to one another, to keep us constantly engaged in dialogue on what we can do better, but also to stop and to take stock at what we're doing well and learning, how do we evolve? And so these spaces are so important and these conversations are so important. But I want to just make note of kind of protests. For those that may not be aware, there's a lot of faces
are probably familiar with our DC protest work. But for those in our Blinken crowd, can we just give them a little chant, give them a little taste? Bloody. For those that don't know, some of these amazing humans over here and some amazing humans over here, you guys are all amazing. But these people were on the side of the road with me. I had this random idea one day, and I was like, why is it that Anthony Blinken can drive home after funding genocide, supporting genocide, enabling genocide, normalizing genocide, and making excuses for genocide, everything under the book to support genocide? Why does he get to just leave and go home? Palestinians can't escape the bombs. They can't just escape the genocide. They can't check out from genocide or sign off from genocide. So what if we just go remind him every day in front of his home what he's doing? I didn't realize how many humans would say, hell yeah, let's do it. And the reason I want to bring up and highlight some of these people is, actually, y'all stand up. Anyone who's been to KB, stand up. And we built a family. We became a family. And we had families with us at all ages. And we had intergenerational families. We had 3 generations of folks, in some cases 4 generations of folks that would come out there. And what we built in that moment was not just a direct confrontation of Blinken, but it was a place for all of us to come together and to actually confront the inhumanity of the system by humanizing what it looks like to be outraged collectively. And it was all of us in our full selves, in our laughter, in our cries, in our grief, in all of it, every day, looking him in the face. And there's only so many ways you can look. And I can tell you from looking in that window of his car many times, he was always usually looking down. But the best part is when he was in the car with his wife, who, by the way, is a cabinet secretary of the administration. So it's not just, everyone's like, oh, but his family. But his wife is a cabinet secretary. She worked for the Biden administration also. When she was sitting on the other side of the car, it was great because they were usually arguing. And so we were on both sides of the road. So he didn't know who to be madder at. Like, is he madder at her or us behind him? But either way, I think it's just important, the persistence, the continuous actions day after day after day. And protest doesn't always have to be loud. Sometimes it's just standing there defiantly, quietly, and silently staring, which we used to do awkwardly too. Can you imagine coming home and you just have a line of us just being like, it was great. The best part of my day sometimes is thinking about how he dreams about us at night. Okay, so But direct protest is really important. So I just want to acknowledge some of the ongoing work that we've done here in DC. And then I think as Jill wraps up, we can invite her to come join and we can start part one of the conversation because I want to be respectful of all your times. But the Gaza Holocaust Foundation also tried to be called the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation by the horrendous Israeli apartheid, genocidal barbaric regime. They tried to silently dismantle this thing a couple of weeks ago. I don't know, did you guys hear about that? So just they thought they could just like quietly, oh, there's a ceasefire, so we're just going to quietly dismantle this thing. And it's like, hold on, you received $40 million from the USAID recently. What happened to that money, number one? And number two, how are you just going to silently just pretend you just can go away? And the reason they're able to silently do that is because there's very few people holding them accountable publicly, right? And that's a sad fact, because if we want accountability, guess what we have to do? Hold them accountable. You would think that makes sense, but a lot of people don't take the time out of their days to go and confront these people and create the campaigns to hold them accountable. We wait for other people to do it. And I just want to say I'm very proud of the amazing folks that we've built in the DC area that are willing to do the work day in and day out. And we were at the BCG, the Boston Consulting Group, yesterday. We entered into their basement, into their lobby. We occupied their lobby. We took over their lobby. And it was so crazy because the doors at some point all get shut down because we had boxes that looked exactly like the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation boxes with blood on them. And we walked in and they literally called Secret Service and told them that we had suspicious packages. And they literally shut this down. Like tons of cops descended in on us, but the cops have known our protests by now. So as soon as they walked in, they like run in expecting to find something and they just look at us and they're like, oh, it's y'all. I look at the guards that were really excited to see us get arrested. And I'm like, thanks. 15 more minutes, we'll go outside. But I'm just saying that to say, y'all, protest does not have to be big, does not have to be flashy, does not have to be grand. It just has to be consistent, persistent, and approachable. Like you have to be able to confront these people directly. So I'm inviting anyone in this room who wants to come and join us in our direct action campaigns to do so. And with that, I'm going to invite Dr. Jill Stein to come join me up here. Did I buy you enough time? Did I do a good job, Andy? Yeah? Okay, okay. He was concerned about, yeah. There's chairs in the front for people that need a seat. I don't bite. I don't know, Jill, do you bite? No, okay. Safe so far. All right, do you want to have a seat? All right, we're going to go ahead and get started in our chit chat over here. And then as Butch and Chris approach, we will just kind of continue in conversation. So first off, hello.
Hello.
Well,
Hello. And what an amazing job that Hazami did, not only tonight, but today. Who was at the protest today? Was anybody at the AFL today? Yeah. Hazami really kept it all together and was our MC for about 2.5 of the 3.5 hours that it went on for. So really great job. And I'd say that to everybody here who's standing up and just not giving up the fight. And at this really, really crazy moment when the propaganda is just completely off the walls and the effort to confuse us and to pretend that Donald Trump's plan for permanent occupation and permanent genocide, just at a slightly lesser level, is all we should dare ask for and dare hope for. The notion that Palestinians are peripheral to this, they have nothing to say about it. And the effort to normalize what is really a permanent colonial economic occupation that puts Donald Trump in charge of all of the decisions about redevelopment. It's really the perfect vehicle for his Gaza Riviera plan. It's just shocking and incredible that this is being passed off as some kind of a credible peace plan. There's nothing peaceful about it, and it's not a plan. It's essentially an ultimatum in which the Palestinians have had nothing to say. So it's really important that we be talking to each other right now to keep the momentum up and keep the heat on. I think they were terrified at the progress that was made over the past 2 years with the decision of the International Court of Justice, the criminal court, and then the vote in the UN a little over a year ago, where the UN basically said, we're going on record here. We're giving you 1 year, Israel, to comply with the International Court of Justice. That means removing your troops. It means the occupation is over. Apartheid is over. There is a right of return and a right to compensation. And we are going to compel you to abide by that decision if you have not complied in a year. So they are terrified right now, they meaning Israel and its allies like the US. They are terrified that the UN should be able to follow through. So there's been a whole proliferation of these fake plans right now, which are really Trojan horses. There's nothing different. They essentially normalize the genocide and the occupation that's been going on really for, what is it, almost a century now or more. So it's really important that we be standing up right now and doing a reality check to once again throw off this, this intensive propaganda push going on right now, because in so many ways we actually are winning the day here. In the court of public opinion, we have won, and that's to the credit of everyone here who's been standing up and speaking out. So would you just give a big thank you to all of us. Together, it's important to recognize how much we have turned the tide. At the time of October 7th, the initial polls showed overwhelming support for Israel and next to nothing for Palestine. But now it's completely reversed. And in fact, it's at least by a 2-to-1 margin that the American public is saying that this genocide must be over. And in fact, the American public is now saying not only stop funding the genocide, but also saying stop funding Israel. We should not be paying for health care and for free higher education for Israelis when in this country this is such a crisis. And in fact, we are cutting food from some 40 million children now with the food stamp program. It's an absolute outrage.
But I think, Jill, one of the important things that you're mentioning here, though, is the American public had been unaware, right? It's not that they're now against genocide. They've now, because of the voices, the courageous voices of people in Gaza and in the West Bank, across Palestine, because of those voices, people are able to now ask questions to say, what are we actually funding? Why do Israelis get to go there? Why are there 800,000 plus people with American passports living on occupied, stolen Palestinian land in the West Bank? These are questions that the United States population, and I always say this, I don't want to sound patronizing, but Israel preyed on the ignorance of the American public for a very long time. And it's not to be patronizing or negative. It's simply to say that most Americans are so busy figuring out how to put food on their tables and live their lives and do day-to-day activities that we don't have time to question these things.
And in fact, this is the American system in a nutshell. Keep us so busy trying to keep a roof over our head that we just don't have time. And I see Butch Ware is now in the room. So get up here, Butch.
Wherever your heart desires. Welcome.
Butch came in on a red eye this morning, so he was entitled to a moment of downtime.
And he was amazing at the rally today. MashaAllah.
And came in all the way from California for us to launch what we really hope is the beginning of a revival, a rediscovery, a spiritual renewal, a moral renewal of the labor movement in this country. Or shall we say, of its leadership that has been bought and sold and paid for. So it was wonderful. And we're really glad to have you, Butch. Do you have a microphone? Yes, you do.
Yeah, so we're just kind of giving a little bit of an overview of where we're at landscape-wise with regards to the American public now being more aware of what we are actually funding. And we just started to touch briefly on this idea of the average American person knowing relatively little to nothing about the apartheid, the occupation, the land theft, the colonization of Palestine. And this genocide has catapulted the issue into the hearts and minds of Americans in a way that we haven't had before. But the working American class, when we're looking at ports being shut down across Europe, we were talking about this a little bit over here earlier at dinner, you see that in other places, they have access to healthcare. Cost of living is not constantly on the hearts and minds of everybody. When we're looking at the American labor movement in this country, and this is more, opening it up to a dialogue between you both, why are we having a hard time reaching the American working class to have them understand their role in supporting Israel's apartheid and occupation?
Greetings, everyone. Sorry, I'm a little late. I had to actually do some work for my campus over Zoom, so apologies for getting in late. The first thing that I would say in response is to...
Are you hearing?
Can you guys hear me, or do I need to hold the mic closer? Okay, microphone check. Yeah, do the MC thing. Okay. So the first thing, actually, I'll quote one of my favorite MCs. Wise Intelligent from Poor Righteous Teachers once told me, narrative scripts human behavior the way that code scripts computers. Tell a different story and you produce a different social reality to inhabit. So the good news is that the narrative control of Zionists over the public narrative has been completely broken. The toothpaste is not going back in the tube. The genie is not going back in the bottle. They are finished. They have lost narrative control. So that's the good news. The bad news is that for the most part, Zionist leadership in positions of political and economic and social and cultural authority doesn't care about controlling the narrative so much anymore as long as they can continue to cling to power. So there are no more moral appeals to be made to people in positions of power. We simply have to contest for power. Now, having said that, your average working class person has soured on the Zionist project overall, right? We've seen since October of 2023 a kind of massive awakening of ordinary people with respect to like what Zionism is. And that's across the ideological spectrum. People that consider themselves leftists were never down for Zionism, but liberals have been pretty down for Zionism. Lots of conservatives have been down by law for Zionism. And across that part of the ideological spectrum, that's been largely broken. Nonetheless, I think that there's still a lot of naivete in the overall public about the extent to which these Zionist institutions actually control our elected officials and actually control, and this is the part that some folks are not going to want to hear, actually control our labor leadership. They actually control our labor leadership. And since I'm walking in late and I got to do some catching up, I'm just going to jump right into the deep end of the pool. Unless and until the leadership of labor movements across this country get off of the Democrat plantation, no genuine liberation is possible either for the Palestinian people or for the American people. And the simple reason for that is that the Democrat Party is a capitalist, imperialist, corporate, white supremacist party. And for those of you that have heard me speak before, maybe you were on in front of the AFL-CIO today, maybe you weren't, but my hero, my role model, it was El-Haj Malik Shabazz, Malcolm X. Malcolm warned us that the liberal is a fox, it bares its teeth, you think it's smiling at you, but you are on the menu. The conservative is a wolf. When it bares its teeth, it's into a vicious snarl that leaves the black man with no illusion as to where he stands. That's for Malcolm. Malcolm understood that the black community, and he said this in 1964, was caught between two predators that differ only in the modality of the hunt. They differ only in the way that they hunt. One gets up close to you, smiles, hunts by guile, and then knifes you right in the side. And the other snarls and faces off, squares off against you. And the problem is that many of us have been taking Team Blue as friends. And our political leadership has taken Team Blue as allies. And Malcolm said in 64, and I'm gonna swallow hard, but I'm gonna say this in this room nonetheless, because this is gonna be hard for some of y'all to hear. Malcolm said in 64, the white liberal is the most dangerous thing in the Western Hemisphere. Living in California, come on. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. I walked in like 5 minutes before you, so all of the CP time jokes are now going to come out. But I'll finish the bar and then pass the mic. Malcolm said in 64, the white liberal is the most dangerous thing in the Western Hemisphere. And running for governor in the state of California to try to replace a termed out Gavin Newsom, I look at Gavin Newsom and I see living proof of that in 2025, right? And what Malcolm said in 64, just pay attention to what white conservatives were doing in 1964. White conservatives were hanging black kids from trees. White conservatives were turning dogs and fire hoses on black protesters. White conservatives were putting bullets in the brains of white voting rights activists and burying them in shallow graves next to Mississippi roads. And Malcolm said what he said. So the idea that the problem is Trump and that the problem is over there and that the problem is Team Red is part of what we need to get ordinary working class people off of. I gave you two agrarian metaphors from Malcolm. I'm gonna give you one that's from myself. A sheep is gonna spend its entire life living in fear of the wolf, only to be eaten by the shepherd. Do you understand what I'm saying? Team Blue is gonna say, look like Al Pacino and Scarface. Say goodbye to the bad guy. That's the bad guy over there. Bad Pacino impression, but you guys seen Scarface. That's the bad guy over there. They're dangerous. Team Red is dangerous. Team Red is doing fascism, but Trump is still chasing Obama's deportation records, right? Who started and threw gasoline every single day on this specific phase of an ongoing Nakba since October 7th, 2023? It was Team Blue that did that. So Team Blue is keeping people close, right where they can be lambs led to the slaughter. And unless and until we demand something other than capitalist, imperialist, white supremacist leadership from our elected authorities, we are going to continue to get capitalist, imperialist, white supremacist leadership from our authorities.
100. And absolutely. Just real fast, if you guys have an empty seat next to you, raise your hand. We got some people in the back. You guys come fill in these empty seats. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a very important point that you bring up here, Butch. And I was saying earlier at the rally that we were at, that the issue, the Israel issue in the United States is an America issue, right? It's not a blue, red, pink, purple, you know, whatever. It is an American issue. And Zionism has impacted multiple aspects of U.S. life, from the media to, you know, law firms afraid to take cases, to a lot of things that were considered conspiracy theory and taboo to even call out up until now. So, you know, the occupation of the American mind, if you have not seen that documentary, please do, is very true in that America has been held back because it's been occupied. Zionism has occupied this country. So I want Jill to come back to you to maybe talk to why Palestine? What, as an American person who's running for office or as an American in general, it's so easy to other the issue, and you've taken it on pretty actively. And then don't worry, Chris, we're coming to you next. You're going to talk about all the labor stuff. You're going to fix it all. But I want to start here because as we go to understand labor and the working class America, we still have all the layers of the kind of the elite that run cities like Washington that have not only drank the Kool-Aid, but are afraid to challenge it. And if you can't get risk to be taken among people that have pensions and have salaries and have all these things, how are we going to then expect the risk to be taken by those who have a lot more to lose in the case of, financial security or lack thereof?
I'll just say that I think we all have everything to lose here. That, yes, working people have a lot to lose if you're going to put your job on the line, if you are going to strike, if you're going to speak out and risk retribution. Yes, working people are especially vulnerable, but everybody is really under assault right now. Look, we can't even speak out. You are criminalized as an anti-Semite, and worse, I myself am facing assault charges, basically, for having been assaulted by cops with a bicycle for standing at Washington St. Louis University in support of students against, against the military expenses and sponsorship of the school and their contracts with, one of the defense contractors. And we were accused of assaulting them when they're assaulting us. And, we see this going on right now with everybody who stands up against ICE as well. So it's not like these are isolated problems. These are very much part of a system. And for me, there was no getting around Palestine. As a Jewish person who grew up after the Holocaust, my worldview was really salvaged. My community was able to face our experience of genocide based on the notion that we weren't going to let it happen again. And suddenly we weren't just letting it happen again. This was being conducted by the state of Israel, the supposed home of Jews. And the bottom line there is that Zionism is not Judaism. That is a falsehood that's been perpetrated on the American public. But I myself felt like the worldview that I had put together as a child about how the world works and how we, how we have compassion for each other. When you go through a genocide, it really destroys that notion that humanity has some kind of compassion and some kind of connection to each other. So for me, it became really important to stand up and to fight this this genocide being carried out by the state of Israel, and to clarify that this is a product of Zionism, which is fundamentally a form of white supremacy. It's not the only genocide. I should say the Holocaust was not the only genocide. There are, this country was founded on the genocide of indigenous people here. That this is something we have to stand up and fight. So it became for me a mission, a special mission. I feel like all of us are feeling the world falling apart around us, whether it's because you can't keep your house or your apartment, whether you cannot afford health care, whether you are one of those 50,000 people who, it's like a little genocide, every year, the 50,000 people who die for being denied health care because they can't afford health insurance, whether you are mired in debt, whether it's medical debt, 100 million people, or student debt, which is about half as many. It's not working. And it's not only not working, it's getting worse by, if not the day, then by the week and the month. We're in a sinking ship right now. And I could not be quiet about that. And I could not sort of hide behind fear of retribution or that the Zionists are coming after you. To me, the greatest threat was not the Zionists or the retribution or crazy MAGA people who might come after you. It's like where our world is going. This is so much bigger a threat to all of our lives. So that's where it came from for me. And the knowledge that this is not an isolated problem. This is part of empire. This is part of what is consuming over 50% of our discretionary budget. This is why we don't have health care. This is why we don't have housing. This is why we don't have education that actually serves our communities. Or it used to be free. Higher education was free when I grew up. Why could we afford it then and we can't afford it now? It's because, you know, our tax dollars, or I should say our dollars, our wealth, is more concentrated than it has ever been. So yeah, I agree with Bernie and AOC that oligarchy is a problem. But where I disagree with them is that the Democratic Party, which is funded by oligarchy, is not the solution to that crisis.
Teach.
And you have to, as Malcolm said, and I'm remembering this because Butch reminded us all this afternoon, one of the many things that Malcolm said is that you can't simply fight an issue as an issue. You really have to mobilize to change the system. And the fight for justice in Palestine, the fight to stop the genocide, it is about our liberation as well from this system which is killing all of us, some of us faster than others, but I think there's this growing awareness. I spoke to someone after the rally who had seen part of it, and what he said was that I have so much rage right now and I don't know what to do with it. And to me, that is like where America is. We are feeling so under attack, so under assault, and we are being propagandized that resistance is futile, that we are marginal, we don't make a difference, but the truth is exactly the opposite. It's not that we're outnumbered, we're just out-organized, and we are being propagandized. So the solution is what is happening here right now. It is standing up, it's sharing these truths, it's doing a real reality check about the power that we actually have, about the fact that we have flipped the view of Zionism on its head. And Zionists are really on the defensive right now, and AIPAC is on the defensive right now. We have succeeded in a way we never would have thought possible. And now, and this is a big thank you here to Chris for exemplifying what it is that we need to do. In the same way that Chris went out and organized the first union for Amazon workers, and a big shout out for that.
And they're here.
In the same way that he is standing up to fight for American workers, he stood up to fight for the people of Gaza and went there on the flotilla and endured incredible abuse and hardship and was beat up and isolated. As the only black man in the crew, he was singled out and he didn't bow to it. And he lives to tell the story and is all the stronger for it. We have to do the same thing. We have to stand up for working people here, but we have to stand up for working people everywhere. And this mobilization that Chris had the gall to stand up and initiate is, in many ways, this is our secret weapon, because labor and organized labor is not just a lot of people. It's a lot of people who really have their hands on the controls of the economy. And when they say shut it down, they shut it down.
Yep. And talking about shutdowns, it's important for people to know, and I think most people in this room probably do know, but there's some that may not, that even during our government shutdown, guess what did not shut down?
Israel's money.
The military.
Correct. I mean, it is
Argentina's money.
absolutely appalling. You know, to bridge to kind of wanting to center us also in Gaza and what's happening now. And over the last 2 years of genocide, around an estimated between 75,000 and 100,000 tons of US-made bombs were dropped on the heads of children, women, mothers, fathers, grandparents, civilians, citizens, humans, people, animals, all of it. American-made bombs, American-made ammunition, American-made everything. You know, we saw the other day Trump giggling with his Netanyahu dude. I was going to go a whole lot of other naughty places, but I didn't. So I just kept it at dude. You know, but he was like, he asked me for all, did you guys see the interview? He asked me for all these weapons. I didn't even know the names of them. He just, I mean, the fact that they can actually laugh at that, the fact that they actually could have a rhetoric and a banter that didn't get condemned and shunned after saying that publicly, broadcast on camera, lets you know how much complacency there is. And there's complacency because it's not also being confronted by those who are actually part of these systems. So when we were talking earlier at the AFL-CIO, one of the things that I was saying is American laborers are not only, you know, paying taxes, to your point, to actually then fund the genocide, because a huge percentage of our tax money funds the genocide, but these are also laborers that are actually building the very weapons also. So it's kind of like a double assault, in the sense that the ports are not only shipping, but you actually have people manufacturing, laboring, working at Lockheed Martin and Raytheon and all BEA systems. And by the way, most of these entities are headquartered right here, Virginia. And guess what? They all need to be paid visits all the time. We need to keep mobilizing at these places. So Chris, coming over to you. For those that don't know in the room, what is AFL-CIO and why is it important to bring in the American working class into the fight for Palestine?
This is a great question. Once again, thank you all for showing up here tonight. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you again for clapping up for yourselves, man. Damn, there's so much to cover. But let me try to break it down for those who don't know. The AFL-CIO, who represents 12.5 million workers, who represents over 60 national and international trade unions, who is what they call themselves the voice of the working class. For the last 2 years, and actually I'm gonna just give y'all a little side story while I'm talking about the AFL-CIO. 3 years ago, when we created the first union in American history for Amazon workers, right? And my union is actually here tonight, so if my union stand up, please, Amazon Labor Union. And these are not just Amazon workers, right? They're heroes in the labor movement. And you're looking at the black and brown bodies and voices who sacrifice their time, their lives, put their lives on the line with me during the most deadly time, during the pandemic. We walked out of the building together, and they stuck with me, and we stuck together, and we organized against the most richest and most powerful company in modern times, a $2.2 trillion company, Amazon. And we were able to beat them on a shoestring budget. The day we won, we had $2 in our bank account. So that tells you right there, it wasn't about money, wasn't about infrastructure, it was about people power. And we came together on one common cause, that this company and Jeff Bezos make too much damn money, and that's our money. Because no billionaire can be a billionaire without exploiting a class of people. There is no such thing of a good billionaire, which correlates to the Democratic Party, as you mentioned, oligarchy, when they had Oprah and Beyonce telling you that this is working class and we're fine. Now, we can talk about Beyonce and Oprah interviewing Kamala, but I want to talk about the ones who were standing behind them, who were all unionized members. If y'all remember looking at, y'all can look it up now on your phones. Just look at any clip from the DNC, any one of them, any one of the conventions. And behind every speaker were unions. Unions that represent the AFL-CIO. They're all affiliates. So for the last, I don't know how many decades, all of our major unions in our country, with the exception of a few, have been voting blue no matter who. Meaning that, as you mentioned, Azami, talk about doubling down, not only if our tax dollars are going, our union dues are going and endorsing politicians that say ceasefire here, but we're going to vote money to send money there. So once again, the AFL-CIO has not only been complicit when it comes to that. I'm gonna give you another side note that you may not even be privy of. There's actually a Jewish labor committee within the AFL-CIO. And the president of this Jewish labor committee is a well-known president in the so-called labor movement. He's recognized as a labor leader, and his name is Stuart Applebaum. And he's the president of the RWDSU. Sounds familiar? You heard about the RWDSU before? It's been around for over 100 years, along with the UFCW, right? This union, the RWDSU, was the same union that took on the Amazon workers' fight in Bessemer, Alabama. 3 years ago, right along when we did it. Actually, the reason why we started the Amazon Labor Union is because we drove to Bessemer, Alabama and tried to connect with the union, the RWDSU. Didn't happen. So we decided to take matters into our own hands. But what I'm getting at is this, that the president of the RWDSU, who has so much money and power, is also the president of the Jewish Labor Committee. Where's the Palestine Labor Committee? Where's the African Labor Committee? Where's the Asian Labor Committee? Where's the indigenous or the Hispanic or Latina? We don't have them. There's only one labor committee within the AFL-CIO, and that's the Jewish Labor Committee that was created in 1958. Now, how many of y'all knew that in this room? Me either. I had to look it up, and you know who told me? ChatGPT. So it's good for something. But that's to tell you that how closely their relationship is to Israel. Not only is there a labor committee within the AFL-CIO, union presidents who claim to represent the working class here has taken trips to Israel. They have done it. They went and kissed the wall too. Kissed the flag, they've done it. You may not even heard about it, but it's there. If you look, you will find it. I'm not even going to name all of the presidents who did it. But I can tell you one that's important right now is Liz Schultz, the president of the AFL-CIO, who invited the same people y'all saw stand up with me 3 years ago. We got a tour of this building. We were invited to the balcony where the White House is facing. We were given the tour. We saw all of the unions presidents on the walls. It's the history of the AFL-CIO. But then 2 months ago, I was in prison in Israel. And then entire labor movement, all of the labor unions that invited me as the keynote speaker, not just a panelist, but the keynote to motivate their members after we won and made history. All of the unions that invited me to shake hands with their members, to take pictures and photo ops, to have workshops, all of them that donated money. Like I said, the day we won, we had $2. The next day, we had $500,000. So all of the unions know to donate. But when it comes to taking on a company like Amazon that's worth $2.2 trillion, you not just have to donate, you have to continue fighting and continue organizing. But they said, nah, you guys got it. We're going to take the credit. We're going to say solidarity. Y'all know that word, right? But what is real solidarity? Solidarity doesn't cost you anything. Solidarity is showing up. Solidarity is having a conversation. But despite all of that, for the last 2 years, the AFL-CIO has not only been complicit, they've been actively fighting against resolutions for Palestine. For all of the reasons I just said. And once again, all of these progressive politicians from the Bernies, from the AOCs, and we could go to the White House, which y'all may have saw me shaking hands with Joe Biden. Right across the table was Kamala Harris. In the room was the Secretary of Labor before he resigned and went to the hockey league. Did y'all know that for the last 2 years, as Joe Biden administration, that we barely had a Secretary of Labor? They appointed somebody. And in the first 10 days of Trump's presidency, do y'all know what he did in the first 10 days? He dismantled the board. The National Labor Relations Board is still broken as we speak. And also, for those who don't know, I'm dropping a lot of knowledge today. I know, take your notes. There's a case going on right now in our country that is in the state of Texas of all, that is being spearheaded by Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and Sundar and Mark Zuckerberg. They are suing our government right now, saying that organizing in the National Labor Relations Board is unconstitutional. And winning. Not just suing, they're winning the case. You know why? Because one of our lawyers is involved. And our labor movement is doing nothing. Just like I said today, Black Lives Matter Plaza should have never been paved over. It should have been met with labor, because that's where their headquarters is at. So they actually watched the demolition and did nothing. The same thing they're doing with the Palestinian movement. They are watching it and doing nothing and actively fighting against resolutions. The only resolution, major resolution, that was passed over a year ago was by the UAW and Sean Fain, which is great. But a resolution is not the end or the solution. A resolution is just a piece of paper. I could give a damn about a piece of paper. The strongest weapon that we have is the same strongest weapon that I had while I was in prison. It's our bodies. And withholding our labor is what we have to do. The AFL-CIO right now, they have access to all of the U.S. ports with a phone call. So I know there's a lot of organizations around America doing the work on the ports, and that's excellent. We want you to continue doing it. Educate them, because the education part is the most important part. But that's also a long fight. We're at the head of the snake right here. They have a responsibility in the due diligence to the working class. And they already put out a statement and made their position. If you dig a little deeper, you'll find a statement that the AFL-CIO released that said that the Palestinian movement is outside the scope of labor. Their words, not mine. So yeah, I'm pissed the hell off, because these labor unions, these labor leaders are failing the working class. Yes. Palestinian liberation is a working class issue. This is our fight. And if you look at history with the Palestinian resistance, you will understand that the trade union movement was their resistance since the first Nakba. Actually, trade unions were the first humanitarian aid organizations before they were organizations. Until this day, trade unions from Greece, from the Middle East, support the people of Palestine. We won the popular opinion. They know that. Gaza is showing us what we have to do right now. The world is coming together for one common cause. And that's why they are so afraid. And that's why they're telling the black community to sit this one out. Because they know once we mobilize, shit is real. So I got on the Hundella for not just being a trade unionist, or being a father, or being an American taxpaying citizen. I got on there to show the black community what we have to do. Just like the Black Panthers did, just like Malcolm X did, just like Nelson Mandela's grandson, who just got on the flotilla, did, just like his father did. This is our fight. So understanding that this AFL-CIO entity is accountable and the blood is on their hands. We are here today demanding that they fully divest from Israel. They shut down all U.S. ports, and they condemn Israel for their war crimes, which includes assaulting a labor leader and the 7 Americans. Because let's talk about that as well. Our U.S. embassy ain't do shit. Our consulate ain't do shit. These politicians ain't doing shit. And they're sitting here saying in our faces every day that they stand with the working class. Enough is enough, y'all. I already said the definition of insanity, because we're doing the same thing and expecting different results. It's not going to happen. It's time for us to escape the two-party plantation, because that's exactly what we're on.
Preach.
And you cannot fix the party from within. I don't give a damn how many progressives you think you're going to vote into office. Because when we say this is a lifetime fight, it is a lifetime fight. But I can tell you in my short years of organizing, I'm a fast learner. I only been around the block 3 years as a union president. Before that, I was a fired Amazon worker. Before that, I wasn't doing shit. I wasn't an organizer. I wasn't a trade unionist. I wasn't an activist. I was going to work like my comrades here, 10, 12 hours a week, 70 hours a week, busting my ass, working 2 jobs just to survive 5 years ago. Y'all didn't know me. And yes, if you would have told me I could look as cool as a rapper as a trade unionist, I'd have been doing this shit a long time ago. Because that's what's missing. Organizing is hard as hell. It's not appealing to the younger generation to join a trade union. It's not. We have to make it cool, but we also have to make it inclusive. Because right now, our trade unions are gatekeeping. And because they're gatekeeping, union density is in the trash in America. Less than 6% in the private sector, less than 10% in the public sector, on the decline every day, because all these new jobs are ununionized and artificial intelligence is behind it. Y'all just saw what Amazon released, or actually leaked, that they're planning to replace 75% of their workforce with robots. Oh, we didn't know that. Yes, we knew that. That was the plan all along. So if Amazon doing it, what do you think is going to happen to all of these other corporations? They're going to follow suit. So if labor is not going to stand up for the working class, who's going to do it? It is us. There's no cavalry coming. Just take my experience by itself. When I got back from the Hundella, no politicians, no government, no labor movement. So if you think they give a damn about us or give a damn about Palestine, you're sadly mistaken. We have to force the issue, or not only force the issue, we got to hold them accountable. And the best accountability is availability. Because you are available to have that conversation. And if you're not there to have that conversation, that is a missed opportunity. So when people ask me, how the hell did y'all beat this $2.2 trillion company, Amazon? The answer is right here in this room. It's the person to the left and the person to the right of you. No amount of money in the world can amount to the power of people when we come together.
And I want to also ask you to shed some light on the petition itself. So for those that don't know, there is in essence, a community that has built up around trying to connect the struggle of labor with the Palestine liberation movement and allowing the average working American to understand that these are issues that impact each other directly. So there was a petition that was created. Can you shed some light on the petition itself, how many signatories, and what that process was like today as that was delivered to the AFL-CIO?
Absolutely, yeah. So when I was released, and shout out to Andy, because I was down here not too long ago, but it was really right after I got out of the flotilla. I came down here to DC. I've been traveling around trying to plant the seeds, keep the focus on Gaza, keep the focus on Palestine. And when we didn't have no outside communication when we were in prison, and when I was released, some of the folks from the San Diego Labor Council, they reached out to me, and they were saying, "You can't go public, but we have a resolution on the table right now. It should pass by Wednesday, and then we will announce it." And in this resolution, it said that Israel is committing a genocide, that Israel is committing war crimes. We condemn them for their war crimes. We condemn them for the assault on the labor leader, Chris Smalls. And we are demanding that they shut down all the U.S. ports and fully divest from Israel, whether it's pensions, stocks, funds, etc. And they passed it unanimously. 200 union delegates. Don't clap yet, because guess what the AFL-CIO did? They sent a representative from here all the way to San Diego, California, to try to kill this resolution. But they've been doing this for 2 years. And they've been succeeding. But they didn't succeed that time. They were booed out the room, and they were ran out by the union delegates, and they passed this resolution, even though they were threatened by the AFL-CIO that this goes against their constitution. And it didn't, actually. Everything they were doing was in their rights of their constitution. But they were saying, because it's about the language, that this goes against the AFL-CIO constitution. So now you know the truth. They have been actively sending representatives 3,000 miles across the country to stop a piece of paper. That is them. It's more than complicity there. So when we were able to go public with this resolution, did any of y'all even hear about it? Of course, because the media is not going to tell y'all. The labor movement is not going to say they passed one of the strongest resolutions in our country was passed in San Diego. No other council has done it. It has the arms embargo. It has everything that we want in this resolution, and it's passed, and nobody's talking about it. Now we are. So I said to amplify it, we took some of that language and we drafted up a petition, which I co-drafted with a Palestinian activist. Shout out to Lulu in California, who helped me co-draft this petition. And we did a rally in Los Angeles. And from there, that's where we planted the seed. So now, how we got here today is that this petition is circulating online, disarmgenocide.org. So if you have a chance, if you didn't sign it, we have a website now, disarmgenocide.org. You can find it easily that way. And we are here to say that not only delivered the petition, which was, by the way, accepted by the chief of staff of the president of the AFL-CIO today. So clap it up for those who showed up today, because we did what we came to do. We did what we came to do. No matter who showed up, how many showed up, they were well aware that we were there. They were engaged. And I can tell you why. Because when we got there, all their cars were parked at the entrance. Something they never do. We done been down there a few times, me and my union, and we done seen it. If you from DC, you know that plaza is always empty. But today it wasn't. They thought by blocking it with cars was going to block our consciousness. No, but they were sadly mistaken. They were out at their windows. They were looking down from their balcony. They were recording us. So they know that we were here. And we said, we're going to deliver this petition. And we were able to do that. It was accepted by the chief of staff for Liz Schultz, the president, and we gave them 1 week to respond. And if they don't respond in 1 week, oh, best believe I'll be back. I'm gonna be calling up Andy, saying, can I crash through your house again? We will be back. This demand, this petition is not a one-off event. This is the beginning of something that has to end now. And the people, everybody that showed up today, those who organized, and Hazami, who, man, without Hazami, this event would have, without her. So y'all already know y'all have a leader at home base. My sister, we will continue to push this narrative until we shut down every port in the U.S. I don't care if I was ready to get arrested today. She had to pull me out.
I did.
She did.
I actually did.
I was ready. If I don't have to go sit in another cell, I'm doing it. If I have to get on another flotilla, I'ma do it. Because leaders lead. And there's leaders and there's activists. So which one are you? If you're a leader, it's time to lead. If you're an activist, it's time to get active.
And I since you talked about the flotilla and the handala, I do want to also acknowledge Huwaida, who was on the flotilla. Yeah, the queen.
The GOAT.
And
the GOAT.
Yeah, Huwaida
I
Arraf.
love you.
For those that don't know, Huwaida Arraf was literally, as the boat, the handala, was being intercepted, was like the boss lawyer that she is. Excuse me, Israel, you are violating the international legal maritime law. It was brilliant. I obviously don't. Oh yeah. No, you're right. I was just trying to, be the radio voice over here. But no, it was so powerful and so informed and so educated. And to your point, there are leaders and activists, and then there are both in one person. Huwaida, amazing work.
Love you, Huwaida.
And I want to come back to this idea of connecting the dots, right? So the idea of AFL-CIO is not this isolated entity. It's a labor federation. 12.5 million unionized folks and laborers work are under that scope. But then there's a whole array of other parts of the American fabric that continue to support genocide. And when we say that liberation of Palestine is our goal, I mean, what we're sitting here right now, and I see Matthew, or he may have just ran away right there. Matthew just came back also from the West Bank, and doing amazing work. And I know there's several other volunteers here through ISM that have gone to bear witness to settler violence and put their physical bodies on the line, standing between thug settler squatters and Palestinians while trying to pick olives. I mean, we saw the other day that young boy, that horrible guy, clubbed that woman who was plucking olives off the tree. So as we're sitting here talking about connecting these dots, how do we continue to connect those dots between Palestine and the United States to get more people here to understand that they're part of the problem, but also part of the solution?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's almost no terrain in which those dots don't connect. They are flip sides of each other. The settler, colonial, racist empire is destroying Palestine abroad in the same way that it's destroying working people in this country. And we've seen, an economy which is really on the skids right now. The economy is totally dependent on the upper 10%, which is spending 50% of the economy right now. This is an economy that locks out working people, an economy where half of all renters are struggling in order to not get evicted. an economy where Americans cannot afford their health care, and even if they can, they're really, really sick. And we have a society and a food system and a system of pollution and toxic poison that is making us sick at the same time that it is pushing lots of pills and ignoring the drivers of chronic disease and acute disease and all that. So it's a system which has been totally co-opted by these predatory lobbying forces. So I think, you know, it's like, it depends, all politics is local. It depends who you are talking to, but there is no gathering of human beings who are not really being destroyed, who are not being targeted. In the same way that a genocide is destroying us spiritually and morally to allow this to happen, it's also destroying us economically, as so many of our tax dollars are usurped by this military-industrial system that does not leave money for healthcare. We cannot afford healthcare, whereas in fact, healthcare, if we were to use a Medicare for all system, it would actually save us money. But the system has been so co-opted, so bought out by lobbyists that they don't even think about how we could save money. You know, and the way that surveillance and AI is taking over our economy, as Chris was mentioning, I think it's 500,000 Amazon workers, or maybe it's 1 million. It's a huge number of Amazon workers.
Yeah, 1.5 in our country, 2.5 worldwide.
People are being replaced by robots, and Amazon has just announced its plan to basically cut costs. At the same time, you know, that supposedly our economy is depending right now on the stock market, on this investment boom, which is all built on air. It's built on the notion that AI is going to save us, that AI is actually a thing, but bubbling beneath that is the understanding that AI is kind of like the brewing dot-com crash of the economy. I don't know how much you've used AI, but I find it's very reliable for things like taking care of my plants. It's good for gardening advice, but if you actually have something at stake, maybe it can suggest some resources to you, but you don't dare rely on what ChatGPT tells you. It suggests stuff, but it's not right. You would not want to put your life in its hands. But that's what our economy is doing. And law cases right now are very much being destroyed by all these fake AI case studies that are being inserted into law cases, and judges are turning it away. So in every dimension, really, our lives are on the line by this hijack of our political system, by the oligarchy, by the crushing inequality that we are struggling with. And how do we mobilize around this? I think how we mobilize is by daring the system, you know, by defying the system, by refusing to believe that what it is telling us. It's telling us that we're powerless and that we don't dare strike back. But in fact, you know, there are so many solutions out there that if we had control of our political system, we could have healthcare as a human right for everyone and save still, I think it's like $1 billion, or it's many billions of dollars a year if we move to a Medicare for all type system. We could have investments in social housing and ensure that we actually have a roof over everyone's head. We could be using rent control. We could be using rent control right now, but it's prohibited. You cannot vote it in, at least not in my state, because they're terrified of it. So the solution in my mind, you know, the solution is connecting the dots. The solution is very much remembering what Alice Walker said, that the biggest way people give up power is by not knowing that we have it to start with. We have the numbers, we have the moral authority, and we have the means to stand up and demand the world that we deserve.
Connecting the dots. I'll be a professor about this. I'm a history professor by trade before Dr. Jill dragooned me into running as a vice presidential candidate. And thank you. And I deeply appreciate the invitation. It's been life-changing.
Yeah, and I have to give a big thank you to Butch Ware for totally transforming his life in the course of really what was a one-day conversation. Have you ever thought about running for vice president? And he said,
24
well.
hours after we met, she asked me if I would consider running as the VP. True story. So I'll be a professor for a moment, and just for connecting the dots, let's go to the French Caribbean intellectual Aimé Césaire. Aimé Césaire, the first to coin the term imperial boomerang. He said that fascism is when what Europeans have been doing to the colonized world boomerangs back upon them. And in that concept, which was later then developed by Frantz Fanon, another amazing, not just Caribbean intellectual, but Algerian resistance fighter, black man went and led resistance. It becomes clear that the struggles are interconnected, because whatever the empire does to its enemies abroad is coming soon to a theater near you. If you didn't believe it, then look at the relationship between the violence that was being inflicted upon Palestinians, that's still being inflicted upon Palestinians, and the escalation in cop cities. And then 200 jackboot thugs being sent to my campus, UCSB, to remove my students, 30 unarmed kids, from an encampment. The violence that the empire exercises abroad will eventually come back to you. Malcolm called it the chickens coming home to roost, didn't he? But I'm going to bring another connection into this conversation that has not been raised yet. And it's incredibly important, especially since we were the Green Party ticket, to remind people that we are going to have to choose between earth or empire. We can't have both. And the reason is that the United States military produces more carbon emissions than 150 nations together. We know that just in the first 3 months of this particular genocide against Gaza, you guys mentioned the 75 to 100,000 tons of ordnance that have been dropped, but we know that just in the first 3 months, from October through the end of the year in 2023, the carbon footprint of that bombing equaled that of 20 nations. We are going to destroy the only planet that we have. And while some of these crazy billionaires think that they're going to colonize space, and y'all's boss is going to blast himself into space while y'all pee in cups because you can't take a break.
Oh, wait, don't forget the part on his penis rocket.
Well, of course, because it's just big phallic overcompensation. We already know that. We already know that. We are going to have to realize that we are going to have to systematically fight. And the reason why I accepted your call and flew out on a red eye and came out here to stand in front of the AFL-CIO is because I understand that the most powerful instrument that we have to resist all of these interconnected forms of oppression, and they are all connected, right? Zionism is a regional variant of white supremacy. Malcolm said it in his field notebooks. He said this is a white Jewish population being empowered by white imperialists to remove brown Arabs from their land. Malcolm understood it was white supremacy. James Baldwin, 1979, open letter to the born again. He said the state of Israel was not created for the salvation of the Jews. The state of Israel was created for the salvation of Western interests. Caspar Weinberger, 1982, said Israel is America's unsinkable battleship in the Middle East. When you understand the interrelationship between these pieces, then you know that we must fight systematically against them. And what is our most powerful weapon? The most powerful weapon in a capitalist system is your labor. You remove your labor from the system and they have nothing. They are destroyed. And that is why the complicity, the venality, venality just means you're purchasable for a price, of union leadership is so despicable and disgusting, because as Brother Chris said, with a single phone call, they could shut down every single port in this country. And just understand that no ceasefire, Palestinians cease and Israel fires. No so-called ceasefire is ever going to be effective until the flow of munitions ends. They are going to keep right on killing as long as we keep sending them the weapons to do so, because that is their function. So then what must we do? We must take our labor out of the system and organize in order to resist all of these interrelated, interconnected forms of oppression. The white supremacy that I experienced growing up in poverty, blocks from here, 13th and H, on a locksmith shop floor, is the same system that was producing Palestinian poverty and dispossession. It's the same system that's producing indigenous poverty and dispossession, the same system that is producing ICE raids and federal kidnappings. Revolutionaries don't just mobilize around issues. Revolutionaries organize against systems, and we need a revolution. Reform ain't gonna do it. And as Chris is the one that taught us this. We're gonna chase our tails in circles, trying to develop mutual aid funds and raise all those issues. The unions already have it. We just have to put their feet to the fire. And the only reason why we're not, as he said, is because we refuse to opt off of this duopoly plantation. It was the great African revolutionary Julius Nyerere, first president of Tanzania, who said, of course the United States is a single party state, but with classic American extravagance, they have two of them. So what is the answer? We cure the toxicity in our air and our water and in our politics by removing these toxic politicians out of power. Why do they get away with it? Because they are funded by AIPAC, they're funded by Raytheon, they're funded by Lockheed Martin, Boeing, General Dynamics, Northrop Grumman, and who funds you, runs you. So if we bring together a general strike with actual interventions to remove ourselves from this duopoly, from the Team Blue genocide and Team Red fascism, then we have everything that we need in our capacity right now to be free. I am not passing this to my children. I want to see liberation with my own eye, hold it with my own hand, taste it with my own tongue, and pass it to my children. And that can happen if we are willing to organize for it and if we are willing to fight for it now and not later.
And it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Say that.
Because the world is mobilizing. The world is continuing to mobilize. And as Jill was saying earlier, the timing of this ceasefire was not accidental. It was at a time when the world was mobilizing, where you had not only the flotillas, but you had shut it downs all over the world. All over the world, millions and millions and millions of people were standing up and saying, no, we will shut it down for Palestine. It was such a large moment that cookie crumbs had to be presented to try to pacify us, but they did not know. They tried to bury us, did not know we were seeds. And so the thing that we are realizing now is that we're at a critical moment in history where we have never seen this much mobilization, this much coordination, this much allyship, this much solidarity, this much interest, and I'll say something important, this much curiosity. Because the way to dismantle these systems of oppression is to get people to start being curious as to how the heck we got here and what are these systems. The biggest resistance to learning for adults is that you have to unlearn in order to learn. And unlearning only happens when people are curious enough to interrogate their own thoughts, their own visions, their own perspectives. And that is the moment that we're at right now. And that is terrifying to the establishment. People are asking questions. right? And I think it's important for us to know and to really understand that harnessing this moment is not only about kind of planting more seeds of doubt in Zionism, because Zionism will unravel itself. It already is.
It's doomed.
And
Zionism is doomed.
and it's unraveling itself. Like, part of what protest has become about in the last 2 years is literally holding up pictures and being like, do you support this? I don't have to explain it to you. It's a picture of someone savagely brutalizing a little child, and all you have to do is hold it up to Blinken, which we used to do all the time, and say, is this what you support? The onus is now on you. You're either going to have to look away, try to justify yourself, or I don't know what a third alternative is.
Join the resistance.
That. I'm talking about Blinken here, dude. But it's important to know, I think, that these small seeds are planting and the systems are building, and there's a lot brewing under the surface that will continue to bubble up. And Andy gave me a 5-minute warning. Does that mean I have 5 more minutes? Or does that mean that 5 minutes, khalas, 5 minutes American time, not Arabi time? I know. I was just trying to buy more time. Okay, so I've been giving a warning. So we're gonna negotiate a little bit with Andy. They have another event here, so we want to be respectful. Okay, so there's an event in here, so we're gonna be respectful. All right, deal? All right, and you took away 30 seconds, so I'm gonna take that back. Okay, so rapid fire response. Rapid fire response. And you guys are all very articulate, so I'm gonna ask you to stick to 1.5 minutes. Where do we go from here? Butch.
Where we go from here is towards a general strike. And that means putting pressure on union leadership, and it means organizing the rank and file. But I will also say that it means putting people into power, into elected office that are actually not Zionists and therefore will not comply with the Zionist order. In 1964, I got my clock running, Ballad of the Bullet, Malcolm X said, I'm gonna knock on every door in Harlem, and I'm gonna register every black face behind every black door, not as a Democrat, not as a Republican, but independent. Malcolm, a revolutionary, understood that electoral politics played a critical role, as did Huey P. Newton, which is why he ran for Congress not once but twice, founder of the Black Panther Party. His co-founder, Bobby Seale, ran for mayor of Oakland in 1973. And the great Kwame Ture, who I paraphrased a moment ago, he said, voting every 4 years is the height of bourgeois irresponsibility. But I would shed my blood for the vote, and I have, because I know that the vote is how I organize my people. The reason why I'm running for governor in the state of California is to help channel the people's energy from mobilization around siloed issues to organization against the systems that oppress us all. And if you don't believe in electoral politics, good, because neither do I. I do not believe that electoral politics by themselves are the answer. But if we bring together mutual aid and direct action and general strikes with actually electing people who are not going to keep shoveling shit down on top of the people's heads, then we will not have to spend so much of our energy getting out from oppression, and we can instead maximize human potential. We can instead bring societies that are focused on benefit, not on profit.
Amen.
So I'm going to piggyback on that to say that rejecting fundamentally this sold out political system that is predatory, that we are propagandized for 24/7, fundamentally rejecting that is really important, and starting over with a clean slate and really recognizing that we need a politics of, by, and for the people. There are a couple of options for that, but I myself, having gone from healthcare advocacy to environmental advocacy to housing advocacy to anti-war advocacy, I finally realized that all these advocacies really have to be working together, or else it's a game of divide and conquer. And I began to understand that that's what real political organizing is about. It's about creating a network that's going to be together, working together for the long haul. So you personally don't have to cover all the issues, but you have a trusted network which is not corrupted, which is not bought and paid for from oligarchy and lobbyists and corporations. And that's a lot of the work that Butch and I and others in the room have been doing. I think that's really critical. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about one specific thing that I think is really important, that's constantly being left out of the mainstream discussion, and that is this Uniting for Peace Protection Force for Palestine.
Yes.
We don't have to look to the Trump solution like, oh, it's better than all-out genocide. There actually is a process through the General Assembly which does a bypass over and around the US-controlled Security Council. And there is a proposal that Gustavo Petro of Colombia is about to put on the table. This is what has struck fear into the hearts of Israel and its allies, that this could be launched any day now. Go to lifelineforpalestine.com. There are petitions. There's also a webinar which we are doing with labor leaders around the world who are standing up and shutting it down, including labor leaders from Italy and Spain and from Brazil, and our very own Chris Smalls, who will be a part of it. That's also at lifelineforpalestine.com, and that's on Sunday morning. I think the answer to this very corrupted, toxic, sickening system of organization is grassroots alternatives that are of, by, and for the people. And I encourage all of us to be a part of that and explore that and be committed to it and continue it, because together we are absolutely unstoppable. We do have the power.
Damn. That's hard to follow up, man. Golly. You know what? We all have a role to play, y'all. We all have a role to play. So I don't like giving speeches, really. I really like call to actions. So how many of y'all shop on Amazon? Raise your hand. Don't try to be shy now.
I canceled that joint years ago, bro.
If you do shop on Amazon, then you can sign our petition, right? That's number one. Then you can, stop shopping and quit Prime, right? Now, how many of y'all have a passport? Because the question was, where we go from here? Because I was just in Italy last week, where they shut down their entire country and 3 million workers came out.
Damn right.
So where do we go from here? Go anywhere but here and actually learn what's actually happening over there with their working class and learn why they have better policies like universal health care and learn why their unions are so much more militant than ours, because a lot of Americans don't even leave the country. 70% of Americans don't even have a passport. So where do we go from here? Go anywhere. And this is a revolution, worldwide revolution. But here in America, don't clap yet, because in America, our revolution is very retroactive, very slow. It's happening. My book will be out May Day. But forget about that. The revolution starts with yourself. So when you go from here, you go home and you ask yourself, what are you willing to sacrifice for this movement? Because I know what I've given up. I know I put my life and my body on the line for this work every day as I sit here unemployed 5 years later from Amazon with no health insurance. And I'll repeat that, no job, no health insurance, but I still get up every day as if I was fired yesterday. And I sacrifice the time away from my children. I missed my son's game today. I sacrifice because I know that's what you have to do for this movement. So the question is, where do we go from here? What are you willing to sacrifice for this movement? What are you willing to contribute to this movement? That doesn't mean get on the flotilla, because we shouldn't have to do that. But that does mean use your voice, use your platform, use your, whatever you may have, skill set, whatever you have, use it now, because your silence is complicity and complicity is death. Power to all people, love and solidarity, free Palestine.
Yeah.
Woo!
And amen. And Chris, as you're talking about your children, I earlier was touching, I'm like, this is weird. There's something in my pocket. It's my son's little car, right? And the one thing I want to leave you with is to build on a little bit of what you were saying, Chris, around the revolution starts with yourself. We're asking people to take risks. And we're not creating a safety net for those that do. So if you're not willing to look in the mirror and say, what more can I do, because you have restrictions, and I don't want to project assumptions onto anyone's personal life or hardship. Some people are single parents, have sick parents, ailing parents, multiple reasons. You don't have to justify that to anybody other than yourself and your creator. But I'm going to ask you, if you can't do more, what can you do to support those that are? And if we are calling on American labor to step up, to step out of line, to speak out, what are we willing to do to catch them when they do? And that is the revolution we need to create, because they want us to be afraid to step out of line because we have nowhere to go. But we're going to make a place for everyone to go. So if people get fired, get them a damn job. If people need lawyers, fund their attorneys. If you're not willing to do the work, step up and support those that are. And I want to close out our evening tonight with one chant. And then we're going to thank Anas Wallah, Anas Wallah. I'm done.
Free, free Palestine.
Free, free, free Palestine. We got to make sure all these people out here hear us. I don't think they heard us. Free, free Palestine. Free, free, free Palestine. And thank you all for coming. A huge shout out to Anas and Bus Boys. Thank you. And thank you to our servers. Please take care of your servers and the crew that have been taking care of us tonight. These are also the people that keep all these things going. And we promise to get out of this room, so we love you, but we got to leave you.
There's another room that's empty now, which is, as you go out, is to the right. If you want to hang out there, please hang out there with your friends. Thank you.